So a couple of years ago, I went on a holiday to America, and in the hotel, we were served by a robot. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, this is very scary. Where's the future going? What's going to happen to the jobs in future for the people who've been doing this kind of service? Now, many of us don't realize that AI is here and it's here to stay, and we're already living in that future. For people in lesser developed countries, they've not yet realized the impact of AI in their own lives, but AI is literally everywhere. It's surrounding us. We have mobile phones. If you're using Siri or Alexa or Google Translate, you are using AI. And if you're using social media, then of course you are being impacted by AI because the content that you're watching is recommended by AI. So everything that you watch is going to be around your interests. Sometimes when you have a conversation in the house, for example, I'll have a conversation with people in my house, maybe about mops. And surprise, surprise, open social media and all our phones are showing us mops. It's made me wonder sometimes if actually there's more listening going on with all of these electronics and the gadgets that we have in the house than we actually know, if there is a lot of information that is going out than we actually know. But I have come to that place where I have said, this is an inevitable thing, and I have stopped trying to fight it and just started to work with it because I cannot control it. This is how the world is moving, and rather than frustrate myself, I will move with the times. Other areas that are being influenced by AI are in agriculture, the food that we eat, even in lesser developed countries where AI is not really prevalent or is not being used as much. There's certain there's certain aspects that where AI is taking precedence in the agriculture sector, for example. What we produce, a lot of it is now GMO influenced, or there is some manipulation to maybe sometimes the reasons that have been given has been to sustain productivity, and after some diseases have been understood that attack crops and they develop new crops that are resistant to diseases. Now the AI is doing all of this, information, knowledge gathering, and keeping record of diseases. And people are using this to develop new ways of practicing agriculture. We also have places like the banks where credit rating, lending you money, is dependent on logarithms. For you to be able to get that credit that you want, nobody's just sitting around anymore and doing that search and seeing how much you borrowed, what your credit worthiness is all about. It's all AI that's running a lot of these things. Now, what does this tell you? This tells you that the future is AI, and there's nothing that we are going to do to change that. We can slow down the processes, but when we slow down processes, I don't really know if that will be to our benefit. For those of you who don't understand what AI is, AI stands for artificial intelligence, and they're just systems or computer systems or software that are developed to undertake work that would have required human intelligence. Some people think that AI is an evil thing and that it shouldn't be embraced or used, but it is something to be resisted. There is nothing inherently good or bad about AI, but how AI is used is what can be positive or negative. You will not find people publicizing their dates of birth, their passports, their IDs, national IDs. You'll never find people in the West publicizing that, or people who live in the West. The reason why we don't do that is because we understand that that is a footprint that anybody can use to get access to all the other things that are being run on these programs, on AI programs. So if you're going to the bank, somebody has your name, has your date of birth, has your address where you live, they can get a loan in your names. And that's why we have to start very quickly to educate people from our home countries to not put a lot of information about themselves online, in that sense, personal information that can be used. I sometimes worry that all of this information, there could be people actually running as some popular people in our countries. For example, if there's somebody popular, let's assume a name like Rita Smigo, I've just made that name up, and then her information is online, it's very easy for somebody to pick it up and use that for their own identity. So we have to educate our people now so that when the full impact of the AI comes out, people are not finding themselves victims of fraud. Introduce AI concepts to your children. Talk about social media, talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, but do not take it away from them. I see so many people saying, I don't allow my children to use social media. I don't allow my children to watch certain things, and they think they're protecting their children. Or I don't allow my children to play video games because video games are also running on AI. There's so many popular video games these days, or gaming, that I see children doing. I think there's Roblox, there's Minecraft, and those are games that are also in Africa. So they've introduced those games to Africa. Those games are good in the sense that they can introduce the concept of how AI works and introduce things like teamwork. They have their benefits, so they should not be entirely removed from children's lives, but they should be monitored. You should be looking out that your children are not spending more time on gadgets than they would be doing other things. It's a whole life, so everything needs to be balanced. They're also learning how to do chores, learning how to do other things that are important for their lives. Part of the education is to allow children to use computers, to use systems to develop their own artwork, to develop their stories, to develop their own coding, because that is where the world is going. The world is going to AI, and we have to help our children to be prepared and equipped for employment in those areas. So right now, parents in Africa, parents in other low other lesser developed countries would do well to prepare their children to start engaging with AI and the things that it does and the employment that will come along within that arena. Those of us in our 40s and below, 40s, 30s, 20s and below, it is important that we are not intimidated by the potentials of AI. There are many people who are using it to improve their own lives. There are so many people who, even younger children, who are actually making income because they have embraced AI through social media and other content creation. Other people have learned to do coding. There's a lot of things that you can do with AI that can help and benefit our countries and our societies. Now, a lot of the problems that we may encounter is the level of superstition that we have in Africa. I'll talk about my own continent, but maybe even other continents have this struggle where people start to tell each other that AI is bad, AI, and what happens is it leaves us so behind. Africa as a continent is depending a lot on exporting raw material. It's been decades we are doing that, but other countries have progressed onto much more interesting and developmental things that go beyond the supply of raw materials. We need to jump in now, considering that we have been left behind. The margin between us and the West is quite high, but we can bridge that gap by jumping onto the bandwagon of AI and using that for our benefit and equipping our children in advance, or even ourselves, not just our children. We need to leave the days of superstition, need to just be in our history. Otherwise, we are going to be the continent that continues to suffer by providing the raw materials and not benefiting financially from those raw materials. Lots of things that are used in these computer softwares, the metals and the raw materials that go into computers, a lot of it comes from countries like Congo, and therefore there is an opportunity for us to start learning and engaging very differently. A lot of the components that make up the computers and the software, like cobalt, coltan, we have platinum, we have copper, all of these are raw materials that are got from Africa. Therefore, we need to leverage that to create equity in terms of our own development with AI, or introducing AI into our countries so that we can run more efficiently as a continent, and that we are also benefiting from the advancement that is taking place. My aim today was to introduce the topic around artificial intelligence and to also help us to think forward, to plan for the time that it is. And it's going to happen so quickly. It's going to be rapid changes that are taking place. Already we can see the impact of AI, some positive and some negative, but it is still, the changes are phenomenal. The progress that we're making with AI in the West is phenomenal. We need to be thinking ahead for what that will look like for our continent, Africa, and the other lesser developed countries. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next week.